Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder.
Have you checked the children?
I want to play a game. The box. You opened it. We came.
Here.
This is the All-American Spookshow.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the All-American Spook Show podcast. I'm Josh and I'm joined here with Donnie.
Yo.
And the Professor Smoke.
What's up?
Will be joining us at some point, hopefully. He's hoping to jump in on the conversation kind of midstream because he's got some stuff he's got to do, but hopefully, no promises here off the top, but hopefully will appear out of our nightmares or out of our dreams before this episode is over. We're kind of, I guess we can go ahead and say we're officially starting the best time of the year. You know, cue the, it's the most wonderful time, but not the Christmas stuff. This is the Halloween stuff.
Yep.
And we're going to kick it off, I think, with a really good one here. Now, this is a wild card pool. You know how we do our rotation of horror movies, but really we kind of, after this one, we kind of throw the rotation out the window for a month or so for the month of October because we got a lot of big stuff lined up, and we'll be talking about that at the end of the show, so you want to stick around for that. But this week we're kicking it off with one of the, top, it's subjective, right? But it's probably a top 20 horror movie of all time, for sure.
Yeah.
And A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984, the Wes Craven classic. So, needless to say, I think we've all seen this a number of times. Will's probably even seen this a number of times. Do you know that's rare air for him? I don't know that, but I feel fairly confident in saying that. Maybe we can ask him a little bit later on before his final thoughts. But yeah, I guess before we get into that, though, we'll go ahead and toss out some of the usual information where you can find us elsewhere. And that is aaspookshow.com. That's the center of the Spook Show universe, as we like to say. And from there, you can check out all of our past archives, podcast videos. You can also go to our YouTube from there. And over there, we have lots of other cool series that we do weekly, monthly, over on YouTube, you know, that's exclusive to that. You don't hear them here on the podcast feed, so we encourage you to go check those out, like Grindhouse Gutter, Video Vortex, lots of cool stuff. And also, we encourage you to go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/AASpookShow, where every month you get a video minisode that features the Library of the Professor, and everyone's favorite, not our favorite, but everyone's favorite monthly show, Crapsterpiece Theater. You know, really, you know, if you listen to this and you enjoy this podcast, please go become a patron because it keeps the wheels greased, right? But if we have to sit through these damn movies that we nominate every month and you guys vote for them, and then y'all aren't, that's a cruel joke if you're not contributing to the cause, so to speak. If we have to watch and talk about some of these Crapsterpiece movies, good Lord. So we encourage you to go check those out. You've got until the end of this month, which is actually only this Saturday night at midnight, September 30th. That's when the polls close for this month's Crapsterpiece poll for what we will watch at the end of October. So the nominees are the John Carpenter classic Ghost of Mars, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, Jacko, that old chestnut from 1995, and how apropos, at least of a title, to be nominated for Crapsterpiece Theater, The Disappointments Room from 2016. So, yeah, I think it's another steaming pile that we have loaded up in the crapper for you guys to go vote on. So we encourage you to go vote as often as you like on Twitter, Facebook, all of our socials, and you can get to most of those by going to aaspookshow.com. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and toss to the trailer for A Nightmare on Elm Street.
The kids of Elm Street don't know it yet,
But something is coming to get them.
There's something out there, isn't there?
We just see cuts happening.
What did that, Lieutenant?
I don't know.
What the coroner got to say? He's in the jar and puking since he saw it.
They're gonna kill me for sure.
Did you do it?
There was somebody else there.
He was locked in a room with a girl who went in alive and came out in a rubber bag.
No one knows where it came from or who it will visit next.
Nancy? There's something wrong with you. You're imagining things.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Do you believe in the boogeyman?
No.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
No!
She's the only one who can stop it. If she fails,
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
no one will survive. From Wes Craven, director of The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left, a new masterpiece in fantasy terror, Nightmare on Elm Street.
All right, so there's the trailer for that. So, really, like I said off the top, I know we've all seen this a number of times, but Donnie, what's your history with it?
Man, this is really lit. This is a very influential horror movie for me. This was the very first horror movie I ever watched. So, and I saw it when I was 5. My dad showed. Yeah, I know. Yeah, my dad showed. Was it? We were sitting on the couch watching this. Scare the shit out of me.
I bet.
But yeah, yeah. So this whole holds great value for me. So I
sentimental value if nothing else.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
but for all the other good reasons.
Yeah, I know we're not going to get into ratings yet, but my rating's going to reflect as such.
I don't think anyone would doubt otherwise with a movie like this, and it wouldn't surprise anybody. My history is fairly similar, although I wasn't 5 years old. I mean, Donnie, you and I are only like a month or so apart in age.
Yeah, something like that.
But I was a little older, but I was less than 10. I'm pretty sure I watched this like when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. So way younger than I should have been watching it too. But yeah. And I remember it scaring the shit out of me. The end scaring the shit out of me when I was a kid. But Smoke, what about you?
I am a little bit older, right? As we said.
Yeah.
I think I was 11 when this came out, and I didn't see it in the theater. Of course, I wasn't quite that old enough that my parents go, "Hey, let's go see Nightmare on Elm Street, Sam." So I didn't get to see it in the theater when it came out, but I saw it. Rented it after it came out on video, and I guess probably 85-ish, maybe, or tail end of 84. I forget when. I don't know when it exactly hit home video, but shortly after it hit home video is when I first saw it. And then it became a favorite rental of mine for a while, because around that time, 85, that's I'd see my fair share of horror movies before that, but that was the year, as we talked about on the podcast when we did Dawn of the Dead. That's when I first saw Dawn of the Dead, and that was sort of a turning point year for me, and when I started to pay more attention to directors, the special effects, and crew and all that stuff, basically got immersed in the world of horror in 85. So, and that's when this movie when I first saw it. So
it's not a jump to say this is one of your horror foundation movies.
Yeah, it was one of the, definitely. At that time, that's also Evil Dead, which came out in 82, but I didn't see it until probably, I might have seen it once before 85 and then revisited it. And then, around that time too. So a whole bunch of these movies were watershed moments for me, I guess, at that time. This definitely was one of them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, between like the Freddy movies and the Jason movies at that age, these were the ones that, beyond like the Godzilla, the Frankenstein, the classic stuff that I think everybody kind of started on, right? You always start with like cartoons and then work your way up to, at least back in our day, right? You kind of work your way up to that. But like, this was where pedal to the metal. Now you're off to the races of being a horror fan. You either jump on or jump off. When you at a certain age and you see movies like this, right? So I think this was one of those moments for me too, where it's like, oh yeah, I love this stuff, and then off to the races. But
I remember my mom being, extremely pissed at my dad for, scaring the shit out of us. But yeah, it was, Yeah, just fond memories of.
Yeah. Well, now you can look back on it and like, yeah, this is a good old fond memory of Dad and hang out. But back then, you're terrified and you don't want to sleep. Man, can I have some stay awake pills and
awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get into some of the background information just so we can start talking about it because this is one that I'm sure we're all itching to get into. I only found one alternate title. Most of them were just some different language translation of A Nightmare on Elm Street. I thought this one was pretty good. In Hong Kong, the literal English translation title was Ghost Street, which, that would have been kind of cool too, right? Like when I saw that, I'm almost kind of surprised there wasn't a movie somewhere called Ghost Street. That just sounds like something that would have come out in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Smoke, is there a Ghost Street movie out there and I've just never heard of it?
No, not to my knowledge either.
Yeah. So it's almost like
with them not going with that title, you would think somebody would have, even knowing the fact that this was called that somebody would have made a Ghost Street movie later.
Yeah,
let's say copyrighted that name too.
But it is very specific. I mean, it's the Hong Kong literal English translation. So like, unless you're like us and you look up these kind of things, you probably wouldn't know that that's what it's called. In a different area, but. It had a limited release on November 9th of 1984, but it didn't open wide into more theaters until November 16th of 1984. This movie was produced by New Line Cinema, Media Home Entertainment, and Smart Egg Pictures, and it was distributed by New Line Cinema. Of course, surprise, surprise, it's rated R, total runtime of 1 hour and 31 minutes, so it's chef's kiss. That's my perfect runtime of a horror movie right there. 130 is just for me, that's bam, not much more, not much less. 130 is my wheelhouse.
Sweet spot.
Yeah. IMDb, it's listed as a horror, of course. The film was made in Los Angeles, in various studios and areas in Los Angeles, California, from June 11th to July 13th of 1984. So this is a pretty quick turnaround. I mean, for shooting to end in mid-July, and then the movie comes out by mid-November. Same year. I mean, it's a pretty quick turnaround for a budget, especially with the special effects and everything looking back on it, right? I mean, I know there's not a lot of, there's no CGI and stuff like that. It's all practical effects, but like when you look at it, it doesn't look like anything that was rushed. It's quality. For a budget of just $1.1 million, which is pretty crazy considering, once again, the way it looks, right? It went on to a worldwide gross of $25.6 million. It's not the greatest take in the world, but for a horror movie, that's not too bad, right?
Yeah.
Especially one that didn't have the cachet that Freddy had, and as part 2, 3, 4, and whatnot came on down the line, and it got more popular. Will, have you joined the fray?
I have joined the fray.
Yeah. Well, we said at the beginning of the show that you might rear your head at some point here, so thanks for joining us. Oh no, we already checked back out. Shit. Before I continue going through the background here, we were just talking about it a second ago. What's your, you've seen this before, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
What's your history with it?
I mean, I think I've seen it like a handful of times, like growing up. I used to have like a pure terror, like fear of Freddy Krueger. So it wasn't a constant watch for me.
You mean of the monster Freddy himself, just the way he looked, or just the fact that I can't go to sleep tonight because Freddy's going to kill me in my dreams?
Yes.
Or both.
Yes. So yeah, as a child, I was terrified of Freddy. So I would still watch the movies, but
it would scare the shit out of you nonetheless.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I think we're all in the same boat, or especially you. And Donnie and I, Smoke was a little older, so he's probably more like, yeah, all right, Freddy. Not really scared of him. But anyway,
I can appreciate the fact that it was a different take on the slasher genre, at least. Like you could tell that he was gonna. You knew there was going to be sequels, basically, when you saw the first movie.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, obviously, I don't remember what the vibe and the reception was when this came out in 1984. I was too young for that, but is that the way it kind of seemed at the time? Like, oh yeah, this is going to set up the next big franchise kind of thing?
Like for me, like I said, I was 12 or 13-ish, right in that era, whenever I saw it on video for the first time. And yeah, I mean, as soon as I saw it, I knew that we're going to see Freddy again.
Yeah.
Because he was right in I'd already been familiar with Jason, of course, in the Friday the 13th movies, but just knew that this was something different, and that he would return. And just the way they ended it, of course, too. Set it up direct for a sequel.
Which is a good time to remind everybody, if you've never listened to the Spook Show and you're listening to the first time, which is very possible since we're talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street. If for whatever reason you have not seen this movie, hit pause, go check it out, and come back, because we don't want to be the ones to spoil it for you, but we're about to spoil the shit out of us. Fair warning. Pause now. Go check it out. To get back into a little bit of the background information, I've pulled up the top 10 in the box office from the weekend that it came out, which was November 9th through the 11th, 1984. Now, like I said, this was kind of a limited release. It was only playing in 165 theaters that weekend, but still, that's its debut weekend. Number 10, A Nightmare on Elm Street. It made $1.2 million, which is really good considering it was only in 165 theaters, which, that means there had to have been a little bit of hype, or at least people kind of itching to go see this kind of thing when it came out. Number 9, All of Me. Number 8 is a movie we've done here on the show. I don't recall the episode number right away. I didn't pull that up. But we talked about this particular weekend when we did that movie, and that is Silent Night, Deadly Night. Because, that's right, Silent Night, Deadly Night beat out A Nightmare on Elm Street for the 1 week that they went up against each other. Because if you recall, when Silent Night, Deadly Night came out, it got yanked out of the theaters, right? Pretty much immediately after that. So, there's no telling how much better it would have done, but...
Yeah, that was episode number 85.
So there you go. Right, Smoke? I mean, because of the backlash from the fact that it was Santa Claus killing everybody and everything, that's what pretty much got them to yank it out of theaters, right? But who's to say that this thing might have went on to do better in the long run than Nightmare on Elm Street did at the time, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was Christmas horror coming out at the right time of year, so yeah, it would have done even more gangbusters at the box office if it would have been allowed to continue.
Yeah. Number 7, Teachers. Number 6, Amadeus. Number 5, A Soldier's Story. Number 4, Places in the Heart. Number 3, in its opening weekend, No Small Affair. Number 2, The Terminator. It was in its 3rd week. And that's right, it was number 2 because number 1, Oh God, You Devil. The George Burns classic. So George Burns beat out Arnold Schwarzenegger. At least 1 week in 1984, it happened.
That's awesome.
He knocked out with his stogie.
Yeah, we have hard numbers to prove that it actually did happen. Yeah, I mean, as far as the background stuff, I mean that's all I got other than just getting into the cast side of it, and of course behind the camera. This was written and directed by Wes Craven. I mean, we really don't need to go too deep into him because there's going to be a Spook Show spotlight at some point on Wes Craven. But he's probably most known for this, obviously. But he also brought the Scream franchise because he did the original Scream. And maybe some other ones. I can't remember if he did the follow-ups right offhand. But at least the first Scream, right? That was Wes Craven. And The People Under the Stairs. Tons of just awesome flicks, before and after Nightmare on Elm Street. So a horror icon for sure that we will take a deep dive into one day. Maybe when we get a little bit deeper into the rest of this franchise, one day we can do that. But we got the rest of them Hellraiser movies to watch, right, Donnie?
Oh yeah, very excited.
Before we can take another trip down Elm Street.
How many more do we have?
5. We've watched 6. We've watched 6 Hellraiser movies, and there's still 5 of these motherfuckers.
I'll tell you what, though. I think it was after we did 3, we were just like, let's go into Evil Dead. And then we just did the Evil Dead franchise.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That wasn't even after 3, though. I think we watched 4 and/or 5, and that's when we kind of fuck, let's do something else. and then we came back and watched the 6th one. But yeah, trust me, with the Spook Show Summer Disaster kind of got in the way. Otherwise, we might be done with it just to kind of get it over with. But now we had to hit the pause button. But trust me, we're going to have to hit that play button again pretty soon and watch Hellraiser 7. So it's coming. This movie stars Heather Langenkamp, or Langenkamp, however you say. I think it's Langenkamp, right? I think I've heard it various ways.
Yes.
Really, this is kind of her bread and butter. Is her being this role of Nancy in this one, and she kind of reprised the role somewhat in New Nightmare, right, Smoke? I mean, that one's really meta, right? So it's hard to say whether she's kind of playing herself in that one, right?
Plus, she came back for the third one, and the third one, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, the dream. Dream Warriors. Damn, what the fuck? How did I forget Dream Warriors?
Yeah. You're right. In '87, she came back for the third one. I forgot about that one.
But yeah, then the metal one, New Nightmare.
And
a couple people that she beat out on that one there was Demi Moore and Courtney Cox
for this role.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Courtney Cox she got busy a little while later doing Masters of the Universe. So
there you go.
She dodged a bullet.
Yeah. Gosh, she could have been in Nightmare on Elm Street. Good thing she took that role in Masters of the Universe.
Damn. Although it was 2 or 3 years later, but still, yeah. By the way, we will, ironically, because we were just talking about it, we will meet up with old Heather Langenkamp again sooner or later, because in 2018 she was in Hellraiser Judgment. We're crossing the streams, which they say is dangerous.
Yeah. Tell them about the Twinkie.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Twinkies, Johnny Depp. This is his very first thing he was ever in, too. Like TV, movie, anything. Like, this is his very first acting gig.
That's pretty awesome, though.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
Now, when we talked about the original Friday the 13th, now, I don't recall, Kevin Bacon was in that, obviously, but, like, that wasn't his very first thing, right? Like, I think he had been in a thing or two of that, but then that was kind of the first time he had, had, an extended role. But it is kind of ironic, though, that Kevin Bacon and Johnny Depp got their starts in two of the bigger horror flicks of the early 80s.
Yep. And, like, Will mentioned that Demi Moore was up for, Langenkamp beat her out, and whoever else, Courtney Cox. But Demi Moore's first movie was Parasite, this low-budget exploitation horror movie from like 1981 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we could do a whole spotlight episode probably on big-name Hollywood actors that got their start.
Where they started, yeah. I think we actually have talked about doing that before, and we just still haven't got around to doing it. We ought to do that one day. Johnny Depp, though, really, I guess the main thing, what would you remember Johnny Depp the most for these days would probably be the Pirates of the Caribbean. If you're just saying one thing, that would instantly come to mind, it'd be that. He also was Willy Wonka and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Some of our fans may remember he was in Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Tons of other things. Once again, that's another name for a Spookshow Spotlight, to be honest with you. Even though he hasn't done a lot.
Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, I was about to say, even though he hasn't done a lot of horror, he's done a handful. And I think it's enough to warrant a Spookshow Spotlight for sure, between like you said, Edward Scissorhands and a couple that I mentioned there. There was that Stephen King adaptation. Was it Secret Window? He was in that.
Secret Window.
Yeah, there's been some other stuff. So, yeah. And speaking of spotlights, here's another one. Robert Englund as Fred Krueger. I think we discussed this on one format or another. Like, there's not many names, there's tons of horror icons that are still with us and everything, right? But there's not many quite on the level of Robert Englund as far as like this iconic role of Freddy Krueger, because like it's specific to the fact that he was basically, other than that remake, right, where it was Jackie Earl Haley that played Freddy, he was Freddy in every single one, right? How many were there? 7 or 8? I think. I don't remember the number right offhand.
And then the whole Freddy's Nightmares TV series, where he, at least, he wasn't necessarily in every episode, but he was the wraparound, right?
Yeah.
Intro and all that. And he was in the pilot episode as it is for those who don't know. Also, you may want to watch that first episode, at least, of Freddy's Nightmares, as a sort of an origin story, a prequel of sorts to the first Nightmare on Elm Street.
So, as far as the franchise is concerned, he played Freddy 7 more times. And I'll run down the list of the movies. A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. That was from 1985, so it was a year after this one. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, came out in 87. Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, was in 88. Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, 1989. Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, was in 1991. And, of course, that wasn't the end of Freddy, just like Jason. Wes Craven's New Nightmare was in 1994. Then it did kind of go in hibernation finally after that for a little while, but they unearthed him for Freddy vs. Jason in 2003. And that was the last time that Robert Englund portrayed the character of Freddy, other than maybe some random cameo in a music video or some goofy shit. But as far as in movies are concerned, Freddy vs. Jason was it. And ironically, we're going to be doing Freddy vs. Jason on, get this, Friday the 13th. That's right. In October this year, there is a Friday the 13th. So we decided that we're going to take advantage of this.
Yeah.
And we're going to, once again, I'm going to say cross the streams, and we're going to do Freddy versus Jason and it's going to come out on that day, because usually our episodes come out on Mondays at 6 p.m. East, but we're going to kind of have a bonus podcast that week. It's the same week that we're going to be following up Exorcist Believer. That's going to come out that Monday, October 9th, and then Friday, October 13th, we're going to be talking about Freddy versus Jason. So I'm looking forward to that, but just, and we'll tease the rest of what kind of our lineup for the month of October at the end of the show. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out since we were talking about it, that we will be talking about Freddy versus Jason. So we've already done the first Jason movie. Now we're talking about the first Freddy movie. So why not go ahead and combine the two and hit Freddy versus Jason before we get back to the rest of the other series somewhere down the line. And I'll remind you, we have to finish Hellraiser before we can continue doing any of these other things. Son of a bitch!
Shit.
There has to be order to the chaos, gentlemen. The only other name, I mean, like, there's plenty of other, like, random character actors and stuff like that, but really I feel the only other name worth mentioning here is John Saxon, who played, Nancy's dad.
Nancy's dad.
Nancy's dad, good Lord, Lieutenant Thompson. Of course, he came back for Nightmare on Elm Street 3 as well, Dream Warriors, but he was also in Enter the Dragon. That would probably be one of the ones for sure that a lot of people would remember him for.
Yep. And Will might remember he was in Argento's, what was that one, Tenebrae?
Oh, yeah. Will, you're a connoisseur.
Being a massive connoisseur.
Connoisseur of Italian cinema, I'm sure.
Grumble.
Yeah. Grumble, grumble. So, yeah, John Saxon, iconic genre actor, like all kinds of stuff, like, the Kung Fu movies, action flicks, horror movies. He did a little bit of everything. Unfortunately, he passed a few years back in 2020, but yeah, John Saxon was a classic character. Well, I guess we should mention that Lynn Shay, although it's a very small role, was like the teacher in one of Nancy's classes. Lynn Shay rears her head, as she has a couple of times, and I'm sure that will come back up. But yeah, that's all I had as far, like, was there anything background information wise you guys wanted to talk about before we got into it?
Oh, I didn't look this up, but now that you were talking about it, talking about Lynn Shay, is she related to Robert Shay?
I'm not sure.
Which is of New Line Cinema?
Robert Shay, yeah, that's her brother.
Okay, oh, interesting.
Yeah. There it is. I didn't see it at first, but sure enough, there it is. And her niece is Katja Shay and Juno Shay. But yeah, Robert Shay, that's her brother.
While we're mentioning that, and Robert Shay's fresh on the mind there, he also did like I said, he was the owner of New Line Cinema, which, by the way, the Nightmare on Elm Street basically brought New Line Cinema back to life because they were about to go into bankruptcy. But he was also the voice of the newscast anchor or whatever in the movie. Well, he's the one that says about the, it's 12 mid and we're going, station W, KRGR is going off the air or whatever. That's that guy. So he's a couple of random like voices.
Apparently all the boiler room footage was shot in Lincoln Heights Jail in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
And it was condemned shortly after production due to high levels of asbestos.
So if Freddy weren't haunting, it wasn't bad enough that he's haunting your dreams. You're probably going to die a slow, agonizing death from asbestos poisoning.
Mr. Projectionist, stop the show. Here's great news you ought to know. We've just got a shipment of taste-thrilled treats, all tip-top quality and delicious eats. There are hot dogs and popcorn and candy galore. There's soft drinks and coffee and a whole lot more. So direct your steps to our refreshment stand to enjoy the finest snacks in all the land.
For you listeners of the All-American Spookshow podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out the service. So I went over to Audible and I typed in Nightmare on Elm Street, and really only just some other podcasts popped up. So I typed in Freddy Krueger, and sure enough, we got a few things here. This one is hilarious. It's Batman Nightwalker. I don't know why that's the first thing that pops up when you type in Freddy Krueger. Batman Nightwalker, DC Icons Book 2 by Marie Lu. That one's a little over 8.5 hours long. But we do have Hollywood Monsters, Fiendishly Famous by Kenny Abdo. That one's not very long at all, but it's an Audible exclusive. So there's also, I don't know what this is, but it didn't look like there's anything even to click on, so I don't know. But it's just called Freddy Krueger's Pit Crew. And it's like this horrible picture of Freddy next to like a like a 57 Chevy or something, and there's blood dripping down. So I don't know what the hell
it's a podcast.
Oh, well, fuck them. So
Yeah.
if so if any of that floats your boat, you can hop on over to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audio books. And now I'm going to hop on back over to IMDb, and I'm going to click on plot summary to see what this is. I know this is Donnie's favorite part of the festivities every week. I'm sure there's going to be some good ones here since it's Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, just not as many as I thought. We've got teenager Nancy Thompson must uncover the dark truth concealed by her parents after she and her friends become targets of the spirit of an evil serial killer with a bladed glove in their dreams, in which if they die, it kills them in real life. There's a couple more, but I'm only going to read one more because it's the longest one. Springwood County, Ohio. Now, first off, I don't remember them saying exactly where the hell this was. Do you?
No.
I mean, maybe somewhere in there in passing, but maybe it's context clues. I don't know. But Springwood County, Ohio. A deformed dream stalker has been tormenting high school student Nancy Thompson and the teenagers on Elm Street. But everyone knows nightmares are not real. The deep slashes on their bodies, however, say otherwise. And as innocents die left and right, ripped to pieces, the oniric intruder's charred figure haunts Nancy, fancy words, who must remain awake to stay alive. Now bright red blood and a long-forgotten hair-raising connection to the small town blur the line between the victim's dreams and the ghastly murderer's realm. After all, the vengeful, shadowy killer has all the time in the world to inflict pain, and sooner or later, the kids will fall asleep. Who can stand in hell's way? And The Glove. That was by Nick Reganis over on IMDb. So, yeah. Smoke, where do we start with this bad boy?
Well, I guess we could start with, his name is, he's burnt up like a weenie, and his name is Fred. No.
Burnt up like a weenie.
That was some lyrics from the Will Smith song, which I think he got into some trouble with Robert England over or something.
Yeah, wasn't there like there was a Will Smith like Nightmare on Elm Street song that wasn't really technically was it for one of the movies, or he just made it? What was the full story there?
Talking about that song that was just like
remember he did a song where he's like the Fresh Prince on Elm Street or whatever the hell it was called. I remember the song.
Yeah. Nightmare on My Street.
Yeah, but it was like an unauthorized song kind of thing.
I believe. Yeah, see, I should have gone into some more. I was just joking around with those lyrics. I should have. I didn't think about actually delving into this, so I have to get back.
And I don't remember whether that was for a particular movie or not. I just remember that being a thing where like it happened and then it just kind of went away. And I don't remember whether it was some lawsuit.
For a movie, like he wasn't licensed to do a song for a movie or anything. He did it on his own. And but I don't believe he had licensing rights.
And it was the music. That was the backtrack, right? Yeah. Was the music from Elm Street?
Yeah,
I think.
The lyrics like a weenie, and his name is Fred.
Yeah, he wears the same hat
and sweater every single day.
Even if
what did y'all want to know from it?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. Glad I looked up the lyrics.
Yeah. We were just talking about just the fact that it happened. I think it wasn't necessarily legal for it to happen, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay.
Interesting conversation. Well, I guess
I believe did the Fat Boys also had something. I can't remember what theirs was, and I don't remember. I believe they might have. I can't remember if they had rights of permission or not either.
I think in a lot of ways that should tell you how popular this was. Is that the contemporaries of the time, like say what you will about the Fat Boys, right? But for a minute they were a popular thing in the 80s. And Will Smith, of course. I mean, like, how big is Freddy as far as, like, in the zeitgeist, so to speak, like, even to this day?
Oh, yeah. And I think it's mainly because of, Robert Englund, the way he's written. He's got the one-liners. There's no other slasher killer of the main ones, besides Chucky, who came a little bit later, had one-liners like that,
the one thing, to that one thing I was thinking, though, in this particular movie, yeah, there were a couple, but that must have started like with the second or third one, like more in earnest, because there weren't really, if you think about it, Freddy didn't deliver as many like one line. There's a couple, like "I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy," with the phone.
Yeah.
But there weren't as many as there were after this.
Yeah.
No, yeah, they definitely, gave him more screen time, because in this one, I believe I was reading, he only had 7 minutes of screen time out of the whole running time of this movie,
and that's crazy.
Period.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
When you think of this movie, you think of Freddy, but like you said, he's barely in it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
yep. I mean, it's well crafted that way, in that the way the storyline works, they're always talking about him. Like, he's always on everybody's mind, whether the characters are talking about him, even if you don't see him.
Yep.
You're hearing about his aftermath or what he did in the past, and how the mom, other people in the city or that whatever town had to come together to take him out, basically, or whatever. I mean, the whole movie's based around him. But yeah, you don't even think about the fact that if I hadn't read that, and I mean, I've read it before, but if I didn't sit there and time it or read that, I would have never, I would have thought he was in the movie more than that.
You wouldn't believe it unless you're like, wow, yeah, I guess so, But how about as far as iconic things, in particular from this movie? What about the girls doing the jump rope nursery rhyme? 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. I mean, like that is just iconic in and of itself, right?
Yeah. I was just about to say that. I mean, that's that's as much as a part of a part of this movie as well as the franchise as Freddy himself.
Yeah, I think even the illusion, like it has happened in some other movies that don't have anything to do with Freddy, where there's some girls jumping rope over, like, say like they're wearing the little Sunday school dresses and they're over in the corner jumping rope. You either think of it yourself or they're directly alluding to Freddy, even in a joking manner, like, oh shit, it's like Pennywise with the red balloon, that.
Yeah,
there are certain things you see. Yeah, they're tropes, however you want to phrase it. There's certain things you see and you're like, oh shit, they're over there doing the nursery rhyme. It's Freddy somewhere, It's Austin with the 316. Oh, you know it before you know it, kind of thing.
The crazy thing about that rhyme was it was Heather Langenkamp's boyfriend came up with that line. I mean, he wasn't even. I don't even believe he was involved with the movie. He just happened to be Heather Langenkamp's boyfriend, and for whatever reason, came up with or he's credited with creating the nursery rhyme.
Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome little rhyme, but like it still kind of gives you the creeps. It achieves exactly what it set out to do, and it's such a simple thing. It's almost as simple as like when we talked about The Shining, the two girls standing in the hallway. Hey, Danny, will you play with us or whatever? Right? Like, it's such a simple, non-violent thing, but for whatever reason, it just fucking creeps the hell out of you. It's the same thing.
And, because twins are weird.
Yeah, everybody knows that. Just like gingers have no souls.
And we just lost all our viewers.
Yeah, turns out we were huge in the ginger community. I just fucked it. The music in this movie, Charles Bernstein's music, how much of a part? How big is that to how successful this is? How creepy it is? I mean, like, if you put any kind of different music in this, do you think this movie hits quite the same as it does?
I mean, it's as soon as you hear it, and it was used not only in this, but it was used. I remember like MTV had their you remember when they had horror awards and all that stuff? Mm-hmm. I don't know if that goes back, but they would use this music and they'd use Hellraiser music. I mean, it had life beyond just the Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Yeah,
but I think it's perfectly suited to nightmare, dreamland quality of the movie, I guess. Those melodies.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as epic and sweeping as, say, a John Williams score of a Star Wars movie or something like that, but it's just as iconic, and its simplicity. Just that piano, dun 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 dun. It's just, I don't know, man. It works. It's just creepy as hell, and it really adds to. It's such a huge part of this movie and the entire franchise. Even I remember, and once again, we'll be getting to Freddy vs. Jason in October, but like I remember even like when they kind of crossed them, right, Freddy and Jason, and they brought their music cues along with them, kind of thing. So it's like even before Freddy, you see Freddy or whatever, like there's the girls with the jump rope, there's the music, and you're like, oh shit, here we go. You get mentally prepared because here it comes. I think this movie is just one iconic thing to another, because when really, other than the very beginning where you see Freddy kind of chasing around a little bit, but you don't really see who it is or what it is, that part where Nancy's in bed and then you see Freddy coming, not entirely through the wall, but kind of like morphing out of the wall over her in the bed.
Yeah, most brooding.
And then he just kind of, slowly goes back, and then that's when she wakes up like, huh? But just that, I mean, like, it's awesome. The effect and everything, right? Just him. And I think I'd seen something where like they just basically just had like this little screen type of thing, right? They just kind of pushed him into
projection.
it.
Mm-hmm.
they just kind of pushed him into it, and then he pulled back. But it's once again simple, but extremely effective.
Oh
Scary,
yeah. And the thing about it is that it was, being practical. Like today, they would do that CG. They would easily just like not even bother setting up all that stuff. They would just like CG through the wall or whatever, and it would, it would convey what they were wanting, or whatever. But it just looks so much better, I think, in the timing of everything. Like whenever you see him go through the wall, and then he comes back just at the right time that she looks up, and there's the wall normal again or whatever. Just a simple, effective scene.
You also kind of see it a little bit on. Well, you mentioned CG, but you kind of see a similar effect in the Frighteners.
Mm-hmm.
But it's it's much more muted and less. It's more cartoony.
Mm-hmm.
But
and if memory serves me correctly, I think they kind of played on this in later installments of the Elm Street movies, right? There was something where this kind of happens again later on, or something similar to it. But yeah, just that.
With the pressing through something like Videodrome, remember?
Yeah.
The TV screen.
Yeah.
Something in the 80s about like, let's have this effect of going through a wall, to a TV screen, through whatever, and having that look.
What they say in Videodrome, death to the new flesh, something like that, right? Wasn't that the line?
Yeah, long live the new flesh.
Long live the new flesh. Speaking of flesh, when Tina gets killed, I put it in my notes, killed invisibly. I mean, that's the only way I could kind of phrase it. Where like Freddy is killing her in her dreams, but her boyfriend wakes up and sees her just getting flailed all over the room.
Yeah, like literally, just like dragged on the ceiling, the walls,
sliced open.
Yeah,
I mean, like I remember seeing this scene as a kid, and this one is one of the ones that scared the total shit out of me.
Oh yeah.
When you realize, I think, especially just remember back to the first time you watched this, when you realize, like, wait a minute, he's not there, he's in her dreams, and whatever happens in her dreams will kill them in real life. That's scary as fuck, right?
Yeah, even if, as an adult, shit, if you think about that, yeah, that'll fuck you up. But.
Yeah. Well, I can't go to bed tonight, thanks. You just pointed it out again.
No, like I did mention, it's certainly not as frightening anymore.
Well, you've seen it 100 times, yeah, but it's still. Yeah. I think you could still, even now with your jaded eyes of, all these movies that we've watched and everything, you can still see, well, hell, like in 1984 or 5, whatever, this would have scared the shit out of you,
Yeah.
Not much like this before. There's been stuff like this after, but not since, or not before, right, Smoke? Where they're quite, things that, especially not to this level where things were messing with you in your dreams and stuff, right? Like this wasn't a thing.
Yeah, no. Of course, they had dream sequences and things, but nothing like
this.
Yes, like it was an ingenious, whatever story, however he came up with this idea of actually. And I think I read something about it had something to do with some newspaper stories of some East Asians who were escaping Pol Pot's regime, who had nightmares and died supposedly died as a result of nightmares they had or something. So he read about that and then kind of went from there.
What's that term for? Is it called like sleep paralysis or dream paralysis or something? Where basically like you can't wake up, like even though like you're having a bad dream, and even though even in your dream you're trying to wake yourself up, but you can't. There's a term for that, right? It's almost like that, but dial it up. Like Spinal Tap, dial it up to 11. It really is, right? I mean, like just the premise. That's what it is. It's like it's that I can't wake up. And because I want to get out of this, something's bad is happening, right? I want to get out of this, and I know I'm asleep, but I can't wake up.
And you, as a viewer, know that something really bad's going to happen. Like when Johnny Depp falls asleep, you already know something. You already know it's going to happen. You just don't know when or how or exactly what. That also is sort of the effectiveness of the dream sequences. Is you know. Well, you kind of feel like Heather Langenkamp's probably going to survive, because the tropes of these types of movies.
There's always a final girl.
The other characters. When they're asleep, you don't know. You know that something's going to happen. They're probably going to get killed. You're just waiting for how's it going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was carried over and played around with well in all the other movies as well. Regardless of the plot lines, some of the later Nightmare on Elm Street movies, you could always rely on some cool dream sequence kills or whatever.
Yeah, and then they bring the aspect of, I guess, where you're first introduced to the concept in the movie of, wait a minute, the way we might be able to take out Freddy here is to bring him into the real world, so to speak, is when Nancy goes to sleep and then she burns herself awake on like a steam pipe in the dream. And then she wakes up in the classroom. That's where Lynn Shay's little part as the teacher comes in. But she wakes herself up doing that. And then when she runs out of the school, she looks down on her arm and she sees the burn mark. So that's where you kind of get that first little, oh, wait a minute. Like, not only are the things in their dreams happening, but this might be the way in your mind that, like, they might be able to take Freddy out, right? Like, because if we can bring him here, we can fuck him up.
Yeah.
Which comes to fruition at the end, in a way. But once again, another iconic scene right after that. Freddy's glove in the tub. When she's she's laying in the tub and, like, she's got her legs open. Obviously, she's covered up by bubbles in the tub. You can't see any nudity, but her legs are spread open, and then Freddy's glove just raises out from, like, right between her legs.
Yeah, they were stunt legs.
Yeah, stunt. Was it really?
I don't think so. I think
well, you never know. So, sometimes, you stunt legs. Oh, that's funny. No, really, she didn't want to do it. So, but it's only. I thought it was funny though that, like, he, you see his glove coming out of the water between her legs, and then it's the mom knocking on the door, and his hand goes like, oh, and then goes back down. Uh-oh. Yeah. But that's an icon. I mean, like, if you made a highlight reel of this movie, right? So far, what would be the highlights would be, like, at the very beginning when you kind of see the origins of the gloves in a way, right? You see
him making the
that you see the girl Tina getting thrashed around the bedroom, and then this scene of the hand coming out between her legs in the tub. Then that's when you really, I think, but beyond the burning her arm thing, I think when you really realize, like, oh, now we might have found a way to mess Freddy up, is when she brings his hat out of one of her dreams. Like, you don't even see this part play out, but they managed to wake her up, her mom, right? And then when she wakes up, well, explain this hat. And like, what? She brought the hat, like, because she says she grabbed it right before she got woke up. So now you're like, oh, now they might have a plan, right?
Right before she goes into MacGyver mode.
They don't go deep into his origin here, but they do explain it, right? They don't give all the gritty details, but basically, like, he had supposedly, I think in this original flick, he had killed 20 kids, I think it was. And then he goes on trial and he gets acquitted, right? He gets off. And then the parents go full on, like, mob rule on his ass, and they go and find where he's holed up and burn it down, and then watch it burn to the ground, right? So, like, they had some vigilante justice on his ass for what he had done. That's really the origin you get there. Now, there are different variations of that later on, and then remember in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, they kind of play more into the
pedophile,
the pedophile angle, which I think here they never come right out and say that, but you kind of put two and two together, like, well, he killed 20 kids, so he's probably a pedophile or something, But
apparently he was supposed in the original script. It was going to play more into that, but there was a recent thing in the news going around at the time that had to do with child molestation in California around the time of the production of the movie. So they decided to play down that aspect and just have him be a child killer out of any of the other surrounding pedophile stuff.
Which really is the smart move, because you don't really need to dwell on it. I'm just saying that, like, I think you kind of put two and two together that's there. It's not like it's necessary to really dwell on, like, this guy was a grab ass or something like that, but it is a part of the story, right? Because it's fairly obvious probably what was going on.
One of the parts that stuck out to me in this segment is she doesn't have any brothers or sisters, right?
I don't think so. Yeah.
I didn't see him in the movie, so why was her mom in on this?
You mean why had they killed Freddy?
No, why was she even with the group of people that went to go kill Freddy? She didn't have any kids that were murdered.
She just, because remember, she's given the origin story, so to speak. So, like, I think she just kind of framed it like me and some of the other parents were just pissed. So I guess she just decided to jump in on the lynch mob, I guess.
So I think that makes her just about as bad as Freddy, right?
Yeah, well, I guess if you just go out to it, even though I'm not directly affected, fuck this guy, let's go murder him. Yeah, I guess so.
No wonder she's self-medicating and getting drunk
Oh yeah, yeah. Speaking of which, like, so I wrote my notes directly. Have we seen a closet drunk on this level at least since Mrs. Mack in Black Christmas? I think that was the last. Remember, she kept hiding booze in like the toilet and everything in Black Christmas. I think that's her role in this, right? Just to be, because every time you turn around, she's not just having a drink; she's sucking on like a damn 40-gallon jug of vodka. It's in the towel closet, like.
Yeah.
And then with the ending of this, like after Freddy supposedly dies in it, like she just all of a sudden decides to give it up. So I wonder if he was in some way, shape, or form, like affecting her.
You mean like was Freddy affecting the mom, like making her drunk kind of thing? Who knows? And especially with
like, almost like a curse.
All I can say about the ending, I guess we can go ahead and jump to it now. Is explain it, make it make sense because really it doesn't.
I can make it make sense.
Okay, go ahead.
Original ending was just going to be a normal, wakes up, they defeated Freddy, they go on with their lives, happy ending, boom, that's it.
Okay.
But, sequels. They knew that they would be on to something, so I think the producer had hey, let's do this to where the ending happens as it happens, and then Freddy's not necessarily defeated, and he can come back for sequels. That's that's the explanation of that.
Yeah, and
explanation.
Honestly, you're probably dead on correct, and that's as easily as you can explain it. But in the context of this film, explain the ending because the whole plan is, all right, listen up. We're gonna we're gonna have a fucking nightmare. All right, I'm gonna grab him, and then when I grab him, you're gonna wake me up, and I'm gonna bring him out, and then we're gonna fucking just clock him in the head. I think she even says, like, Dad, you come and get me in 20 minutes. You can arrest him. What? You're not going to arrest. You're not arresting Freddy. All right, if you just brought this demon out of your dreams, you're under arrest, buddy. We're going to put you on trial again. For what? I was a creep. Double jeopardy, right? You can't, I don't know. But anyways, that's the plan, right? So, of course, that's just fucked. That gets blown up. Now, explain... as part of this ending calamity, explain the mom part of it. Freddy's on fire and is running around the house. Now, he's in the real world now, right? I assume.
Yeah.
He's in the real world now. He just jumps on the mom and just like, he's not, I don't even, he's stabbing her or anything. He's just, he's just on top of her on fire. Then with the mom, they vanish? No, yeah, he just vanishes, right? Freddy vanishes. What does she do?
Nancy throws the blanket.
Yeah, and then to pull it back, Freddy's gone, right? And the mom is just a charred corpse on the bed at this point.
Which just sinks down.
Which I guess makes sense.
I think that's because of all the vodka she drank, she just immolated immediately.
She just got vinegarized like an old pickle. But I mean, like she's an instant burned corpse on the bed, and then just sinks into the bed, like into the depths of hell. Then the bed just, becomes a normal bed again.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I mean that's. I love this movie, and I'm not shitting on it, but that didn't make any goddamn sense at all. The almost the entire ending, and then you get everything's all right. Like all of a sudden, like mom's still alive, her boyfriend,
all the friends,
they're all still alive, and then they get into the car, and then the roof is Freddy's sweater. And then it drives away.
Now, the way I sort of see it is that all of that was still a nightmare, even though they thought at the end that they were away to pull Freddy out and all that, but it ended up turning out that they were still in the nightmare.
So I guess that's the takeaway is that like so her grabbing Freddy and bringing him out, and then the whole thing where she's fighting him. You're in the real world now, and beating him up, catching him on fire. That was all a dream. You think like all of that?
I'm thinking that because of the rewrite, the way they had to rewrite based on, we want to have a sequels out of this somehow or other. And then what's the best way we can come up with? In my mind, it's kind of like that's because Freddy last pulls mom through the door. So obviously he's alive, but I don't think he's in the real world because you got the girls jumping rope stuff and all that going on still. So it still feels like a nightmare. So my interpretation of it is that they were, at the end of the movie, they were still in a nightmare.
That part right there is one of the ones that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid too, was the mom like waving goodbye and then she gets yanked through the little, a fucking door window is only about 8 inches by 8 inches.
Yeah, something.
And I love pausing that and going frame by frame because that's one of my favorite things to do in this movie. Because that is hilarious. That mannequin getting jerked through the door is fucking hilarious.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That is one. If you go frame by frame, is one of the funniest things in the movie. Other than when she answers the phone and I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy, and then she looks down at the phone receiver and it's Freddie going. Oh man, dude, I can't tell you how many times I've just laughed my ass off at that.
Oh man, that is awesome.
But that really does. And one serious question out of the phone scene: if you unplug the phone from the wall, like twirl it up and throw it over there in the corner, and then the fucking thing rings, would you answer it?
But how many times have we seen that in horror movies?
Oh, yeah,
now, granted,
not as many times as like a random cat jumping out of nowhere and scaring the shit out of you, but it's pretty close, right?
Oh yeah,
it's definitely a trope. But still, would you answer it? The answer is
Okay.
no. The answer is no, guys. You don't answer that.
Oh, I thought it was rhetorical.
Yeah, no, it's not. I meant it. By God, I meant it. Well, that's it. I mean, really, other than
you got to talk about Glenn.
Glenn is swallowed up by a bed, right? Like it's Johnny Depp's character. He's asleep in the bed, and whatever happened to him in his dream, we'll never know because we didn't see the dream part of it. Just the fact that he just gets, or did we? I don't know. I guess we didn't. No, we didn't. We didn't see his dream.
No, we didn't.
We
No.
just see him just get swallowed up by the bed, and then whatever happened to him, he got chewed up by a lawnmower or something. Freddie must have just thrown him in the wood chipper, Tucker and Dale versus Evil style, because all we see is blood shooting straight out to the ceiling.
It's awesome.
He's just
too.
viscera.
Yeah, what a great death. What a great on-screen death, man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll talk.
And it was a spook, so that's pretty awesome. And also heard they used 500 gallons of blood for the whole movie, but 490 of those gallons at least had to be in that one.
Yeah, no doubt. On a fucking fireman's hose underneath the bed, just. One last thing before we wrap it up, Nancy, how she home alones the house for Freddie.
Yeah.
This has to be some kind of inspiration for Home Alone, right? Just this little,
booby trap.
Right beforehand, she's reading a little book on like how to. Basically, it's like how to booby trap your house or some shit, right? So, yeah,
that was awesome.
All that's missing is like the blowtorch,
door handle.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to read a book while you've been awake for 7 days? I don't think it goes that well.
By the way, I think if you were awake for 7 days straight, you'd be even more delirious than she is in this movie, right? Like you'd be
taking like micro naps, like wide awake.
Yeah, you'd be batshit insane. 7 straight days of no sleep. You'd be eating somebody's face off. You'd be nuts. Maybe that's what this was. It was all a bath salt fever dream from just being awake the entire time of night. Well,
she's really just a meth addict who's been on the ship for like a week long, and then this is her.
Yeah.
What she saw after.
Yeah.
This is her detoxing.
Yeah. Well, that's it for Old Nightmare. So, Smoke, what's your final thoughts and what's your star rating on it?
Oh, yeah. This is obviously a classic. And as I mentioned, it was one of those, just hit at the right time for me when I was really getting deep into horror as far as, like I said, who's Wes Craven, all right? It's Nightmare on Elm Street. I need to go check out all his other stuff that he had before this. And, so it was a good time for it to hit. I think I'm going to have to go with a 4 on this one.
Donnie, what do you say?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to be a little higher. Like I mentioned, this is what started it all for me. Influenced my love for horror, my love for movies. My rating is going to reflect as such. It is nostalgic. It's got, certainly got some head scratching moments, but I love it still. I'm never going to get tired of it. So yeah, I'm gonna rate on the high end. I'm gonna say 5 stars.
Will, what do you say?
I'm gonna go 4.25. I think if they would have wrapped the movie up at the end in a way that actually made sense, I think I would absolutely give this. I would give it a 5. But just the fact that it kind of takes away, almost like what was it, April Fool's Day.
Oh no, it's not that bad. I know what you mean.
No. What I'm saying though is like in a similar way as that movie, like it was great, and then it kind of takes away from itself, in the last like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Again, I'm giving it high marks. I mean, this is a great movie. I mean, up until the ending, I felt like you could put this movie out today, and with the exception of hairstyles and fashion,
yeah,
I think this movie still hits today.
I'm going to give it the same rating as you, 4.25, for essentially the same reasons. Like it's that ending where it's like, I get what you're saying, Smoke. Like, yeah, I guess, really the way you look at it, it's, it's in the end, it's all a dream. Like none of that shit really happened. Freddy's still there, still powerful, and he's coming back. See you next year in part 2, right? I get it.
Yeah.
But if you're just looking at this as a singular movie, it does take away from this movie a little bit for me, because it's just like, what the fuck is going on? What happened to Mom? What is that? And I think it's a little too easy just to brush it under the rug as, well, it's all a dream. Like you said, Will, the point you were making with April Fool's Day is, and that's the thing that pissed me off about that movie, is because the movie is horse shit. The whole movie is horse shit. Spoiler for, if you haven't seen April Fool's Day, but it's horse shit. And that's what pissed me off about it. So, and as much as I like what I saw in that movie, the last 5 minutes was just like a big middle finger, so it ain't quite that though, it's not that, but I get the comparison. But yeah, I love this movie for what it is. Iconic. It started one of arguably not the biggest franchise in horror movie history, right? I mean, like it's right there. Freddy's on the Mount Rushmore. Everything you want to say about Robert Englund, Wes Craven, it's all here. And, what else can you say? I mean, it's fucking awesome. So I can't quite go 5, but I ain't going to argue with you if you did. So 4.25 for me. So that leaves us all with a consensus of 4.3 stars. So it instantly becomes one of our higher reviewed movies of the year. And I don't think we were surprised. We were surprised going in that it would be this way. So, but before we check out, we got some things to cover here.
Connections on the credits.
All right.
That's funny. All right. So, on the cast side, Robert Englund, probably no surprise here. He dates back to when we covered Never Too Young to Die.
Oh.
And also Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, as well as Lynn Shay, played the teacher. She dates back to when we covered, actually just recently, Snakes on a Plane, and also Critters. On the crew side, makeup effects, remember Mark Sjostrom did Evil Dead 2 and Videodrome, and also kind of like an honorable mention here, composer Charles Bernstein actually did your favorite movie, Josh, April Fool's Day.
Oh, God.
I just thought it was, kind of interesting. Will brought it up. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Twist of irony.
Twist the knife.
You can see the, not necessarily the Evil Dead. You said it was Evil Dead 2 he was connected to?
No, he was connected to April Fool's Day.
No, the visual effects.
Oh, makeup effects, Evil Dead 2 and Videodrome.
You could see that there in this. You know what I mean? Like, not necessarily like directly lifting stuff from those movies. What I mean is the pedigree, of the effects in this movie. You can see that there. So no surprise that he is connected, or this film is connected to that in some way, right?
I'm going to go with a total of 4 on this one. We've got Tina, who got slashed on the chest, and then levitated and dragged up the wall and then dropped. You got Rod, who got hung while he was in jail. Glenn turned into a blood geyser. And then Marge got burnt. However you want to go with her, strangled, burnt, or pulled through a window.
Either way, she was dead.
Yes.
Well,
or everything was a dream and nobody died.
No, we're not going down the April Fool's Day path. We're
not
what? We're not doing it. talk about the kill reel.
Highlight kill.
Sometimes my job with the highlight kill is easier than others. This is one of the easier ones. It's Glenn getting. I'm going to only suppose he was thrown in a wood chipper by Freddy in his dream. I mean, what the hell else could Freddy have possibly done to him in the dream world that is how it
made
turned
a person-sized blender and left the top off.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. And some of the later movies do get a little on that nutty side, so like that's possible. Yeah. But whatever happened to him, it was fucked up, and the end result in the real world was pretty fucking epic. You know, as far as horror movie kills are concerned. So yeah, I think that's the highlight kill. So
Gore score.
Yeah, this one's pretty damn gory for 84 and being a mainstream movie and being rated R. It had to push that R rating as far as it could go. Now, what I usually do for the gore score, it's based off of, it's an homage to Chaz Balin, who came up with the gore score back in the 80s. What I usually do is kind of come up with one in my head, and then I'll go to, I think I've done this on Library of the Professor before, but like one of the, Deep Red Horror Handbook. Oh, never mind, this is not video. Yeah, as I'm holding up the Deep Red Horror Handbook for this audio podcast, I'll defer to it, and then I'll see what he gave it after I've come up with mine. Now, he gave it a 10. And sometimes I'll keep his rating, and other times I'll kind of alter it based on things. I'm going to alter that one a little bit. I don't think it's necessarily a 10 nowadays. I'm kind of basing this off of horror and gore and everything in general from the beginning of the goriest movie that we know of back in the, 60s. Probably would have been Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Feast, maybe is the first splatter movie. Mm-hmm. All the way up to the most recent Terrifier 2 or something like that, along those lines. So, Chaz Balin unfortunately passed away a number of years back. So he didn't get to see this renaissance of horror and gore movies and all that stuff. So, but now we have the benefit of hindsight, going from Terrifier 2 all the way back to, Blood Feast. So I'm going to give it an 8, I believe. I'm going to back it down, back down Chaz's 10 for me to an 8. I think it is very, it's got a lot of gore. Hell, it's, like I said, 500 gallons of blood, and most of it in that one scene with Johnny Depp. But Tina's death was brutal as hell. You got Freddy cutting his own fingers off, and as well as other things. Yeah, that was a cool scene. Like, the long arms thing, that wasn't gory, but that image stuck with me as when I was 11 or 12 watching this. That him having the big long arms reaching both sides of the alley or whatever, and then right after that, is when he caught it with it and he slices his fingers off. And some other various scenes that are a little bit, on the brutal side or whatever. So yeah, I think the 8 is justified, mostly for just Johnny Depp's kill.
Yeah. Like I said, whatever happened to him in Dream World, yikes! The end result was was pretty fucked up. So yeah,
like you said, you don't get to see a whole lot of different ways that he killed him, but later on, for better or worse,
mm-hmm.
he killed him in some pretty inventively funny, sometimes in messed up ways that you see more of. That became part of the in joke, I guess, on some of the kills.
Yeah, it starts to get kind of Beetlejuice a couple movies down the road here. It's violent,
like a Roach Motel, like Human Roach in a Roach Motel gets smashed, and Pizza Face, and all kinds of things.
Yep. Well, we'll save all those for when we cross those bridges sooner or later. But like I said, I'll remind you again, we need to finish the Hellraiser series.
Oh boy!
Before we get there, oh joy! Well, anyway, but we've got much bigger and better things planned between now and then. Trust me, including next week. We're going to be going back to the year 1973, and one of if not certainly one of the most what's the phrase? Not just popular, but just successful horror movies ever made. And we're going to be talking about The Exorcist from 1973. The original William Friedkin classic. The IMDb one-sentence synopsis is, when a young girl is possessed by a mysterious entity, her mother seeks the help of 2 priests to save her daughter. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to checking this one out next week.
It'll be awesome.
We're going to continue the hits a-rolling here for the month of October. And I guess we can go ahead and lay out somewhat of our slate here for the rest of the month, since we teased it off the top. we're going to be doing The Exorcist next week, and then the following week, on October 9th, episode 181, we're going to be doing the new one, Exorcist Believer. So that should be interesting, you know, as far as like being able to directly compare it to the original Exorcist and then seeing this one. Hopefully that doesn't ruin the experience for us. You know what I mean? Like, because sometimes you can be like, God damn, you know, it's nothing near as good as that was. That thing sucked. You know, sometimes that can kind of run against you when you watch the original and then that. But we'll see. Now, this one is supposed to be a direct sequel, right, Smoke? I guess some years later to the original Exorcist. So if nothing else, that should make it interesting, because they're going to they're pulling a Halloween. Remember the most recent Halloween trilogy that we went through? This is the same group of people. It's David Gordon Green, Blumhouse, all that. Like, it's basically the same group of people involved in that are doing this. And it's going to be another trilogy. So this should be interesting when we get to see Exorcist Believer when that comes out. It comes out October 6th, but we're going to be talking about it on October 9th. So check it on your calendar. Then on Friday the 13th, we're going to be doing Freddy vs. Jason. That's going to be a bonus episode just for the extra holiday season there. Then on October 16th, we're going to re-air the 3rd annual Spookshow Awards. If you don't care to wait until then just to listen to the audio podcast, you can go over to our YouTube channel. It's archived there because we did the whole thing live back in September. So mid-September. So it's there if you want to go check it out. Otherwise, you can hang out and wait for it to pop up on your podcast feed on October 16th. Then on October 23rd, episode 183, once again, it doesn't get much bigger than this in my mind. We're going to be doing the original Halloween from, 1978? I believe, off the top of my head. I don't have the info pulled up. But yeah, that one. The original debut of Michael Myers. So I'm really looking forward to that one. That's going to be awesome. We've had Nightmare on Elm Street, The Exorcist, and Halloween in our back pocket for 5 years. And we've been waiting to kind of throw some of this stuff out there. Now it's finally time. So we're going to be getting to that. And, of course, this all leads up to the big event on episode 184. It's our 5th anniversary Spookshow Halloween Spectacular. Come celebrate 5 years of the Spook Show with us. Come celebrate Halloween with us. I'm looking forward to that all around. It's going to be awesome. So lots of big stuff planned this month, and you never know, we might have a surprise or two. We've got stuff going on our YouTube series and everything throughout the month. So stick with us. I promise it's going to be worth the ride this month. Lots of cool stuff. So for Will, Donnie, Professor Smoke, I'm Josh. We are the All-American Spook Show, and we'll talk to you next week when we talk about The Exorcist.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.